My name is Michael Carter, and until 6 months ago, I believed I had everything a man could want. At 41, I'd built a successful financial consulting firm from scratch, owned a beautiful colonial home in Westchester, and had been married to Julia for 13 years. I met Julia at a networking event in Manhattan back in 2010. She was working in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, all energy and ambition wrapped in a stunning package. Her laugh could light up a room, and when she focused that brilliant smile on me, I was done for. We dated for 18 months before I proposed at the same rooftop bar where we'd had our first kiss. Those early years were everything marriage should be. We'd spend Saturdays exploring farmers' markets, Sundays reading the Times in bed with coffee. She'd surprise me with Yankees tickets. I'd book spontaneous weekend trips to Vermont. We talked about kids eventually, but we were in no rush. We had time. We had each other. The shift was gradual, so subtle I almost missed it. Julia's marketing director position at Pharmatech Industries had always demanded long hours, but suddenly she was working every weekend. Business dinners became more frequent. The phone that used to sit forgotten on the counter was now permanently attached to her hand, screen tilted away from my view. "Another crisis at work?" I'd ask, whenever she'd slip out to take calls during dinner. "You know how it is," she'd reply, kissing my forehead. "Big product launch coming up." I did know how it was, or I thought I did. In my line of work, you learn to read patterns, analyze data, spot anomalies. But when it came to my own wife, I'd developed a blind spot the size of Manhattan. The red flags accumulated like compound interest. The new lingerie that never made, an appearance in our bedroom, the gym membership she never used despite leaving in workout clothes, the way she'd flinch when I'd casually ask about her day, then overcompensate with elaborate stories that didn't quite add up. Still, I told myself, I was being paranoid. This was Julia. My Julia. The woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd celebrated with champagne when I'd landed my first major client. We'd built a life together, intertwined our futures so completely that betrayal seemed impossible. But numbers don't lie. Credit card statements showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, on days she claimed to be in budget meetings. Hotel charges in the city when she was supposedly at the office until midnight. Gifts purchased that never appeared. The morning everything changed started like any other. Julia was in the shower, her phone buzzing on the nightstand. Usually I'd ignore it, but something made me look. A text preview from Ryan Matthews, her coworker. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to do it again." My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. The sound brought Julia running from the bathroom, towel wrapped around her. "What happened?" she asked, concerned. "Just dropped my mug," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. "I'll clean it up." As I swept up the pieces, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. In finance, emotional decisions lead to poor outcomes. I needed facts. I needed evidence. I needed a plan. That afternoon, I made an appointment with Thomas Sterling, a private investigator recommended by my lawyer friend. Tom was expensive, discreet, and thorough. Exactly what I needed. "How long do you want surveillance?" he asked, his weathered face showing no judgment. "As long as it takes to know the truth," I replied. 2 weeks. That's all it took for my perfect life to reveal itself as a masterpiece of deception. But I didn't rage. I didn't break. I started planning. Thomas Sterling's office occupied the 3rd floor of a nondescript building in White Plains, the kind of place you'd walk past 100 times without noticing. That was the point. The man himself was equally forgettable. Medium height, medium build, brown hair going gray. The perfect ghost. "Most people want to know if I find something," he said during our second meeting, sliding a coffee across his cluttered desk. "You sure you're ready for whatever this turns up?" "I deal in facts, Mr. Sterling," I answered. "Good or bad, I need to know what I'm working with." He nodded, pulling out a tablet. "Your wife maintains a predictable routine. Office by 8:30, lunch at 12:30, usually at her desk, except Tuesdays and Thursdays. My stomach tightened. What happens Tuesdays and Thursdays? I asked. She meets Ryan Matthews at the Marriott downtown, he explained. They've had a standing reservation for the past 4 months. Room 1247. They arrive separately, stay for exactly 90 minutes, leave separately. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my face neutral. In my business, you never show your hand. Sterling swiped through surveillance photos. Julia entering the hotel, Ryan following 10 minutes later, their hands touching across a restaurant table, her head thrown back in laughter at something he'd said, the casual intimacy of her fingers in his hair. There's more, Sterling said carefully. Audio. I'd authorized it when I'd hired him. Completely legal since Julia's car was in my name. Sterling hit play on his tablet. Julia's voice filled the room. Michael's so predictable. Every Sunday, he makes the same breakfast, reads the same sections of the paper in the same order. It's like being married to a robot. Ryan's laugh followed. Why stay? He asked. Are you kidding? She responded. You know what divorce costs? I put in 13 years. When I finally pull the trigger, I'm taking half of everything. His business, the house, the investments. I earned it, putting up with his boring ass. That's cold, Jules, Ryan replied. That's smart, she countered. Besides, her voice dropped to a purr. I've got you to keep me entertained until then. Sterling paused the recording. There's 3 hours of this, similar content throughout. She discusses divorce strategy, asset division, how to maximize her take. She's been consulting with Janet Morrison, high-end divorce lawyer in the city. I stood, walked to the window. White plains stretched out below, ordinary people living ordinary lives. None of them knowing their world could shatter with a single recording. How long has it been going on? I asked. Based on credit card records and phone data, I'd estimate 8 months minimum. Possibly longer, he answered. 8 months. 240 days of deception. There's a pattern to their communication, Sterling continued. Burner phones for explicit texts, but they get sloppy on their regular phones. Code words. Working. Late means meeting at the hotel. Client dinner means they're at his apartment. His apartment? I questioned. Ryan Matthews maintains a studio in Tribeca, he confirmed. Cash lease, not in his name, but I traced it through utility records. They spend weekends there when you're traveling for business. Every quarterly trip to review our Chicago accounts. She'd always complained about being lonely when I was gone. I need everything, I said firmly. Every photo, every recording, every document. Build me a case that's airtight. You planning to use this in divorce proceedings? Sterling inquired. I'm planning to use this to protect myself, I replied. She wants to take everything I've built? She mentioned strategy? Fine, let's see who's better at playing the long game. Sterling gathered his files. I'll have a comprehensive report by week's end. Physical evidence, digital trails, timeline documentation. What about ongoing surveillance? Continue for another week, I instructed. I want to know everyone she talks to about this. Her lawyer, her friends, anyone who might be advising her. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at spreadsheets that might as well have been hieroglyphics. Julia was downstairs, making dinner, humming off-key like she always did. The domestic sounds that once comforted me now felt like mockery. My phone buzzed. Another update from Sterling. Screenshots of texts between Julia and her sister. How much longer are you going to keep this up? Her sister had texted. Until the timing's right, Julia had responded. Michael's about to close a huge deal with Steinberg Holdings. Once that goes through and the bonus hits, I file. What about Ryan? Her sister asked. What about him? Julia replied. He's fun, but he's not exactly marriage material. This is about securing my future. I closed my phone, opened my laptop, and began researching. Asset protection, offshore accounts, legal ways to shield wealth during divorce proceedings. Julia thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea I'd already started moving pieces she didn't even know were on the board. Sterling's investigation also uncovered something unexpected: Ryan's weakness. "Your wife's boyfriend has a problem," Sterling informed me during a follow-up meeting. "Gambling. He's in deep with some unpleasant people, about $200,000 deep." "How does he afford that on a pharmaceutical sales salary?" I asked. "He doesn't," Sterling answered. "He's been embezzling. Small amounts from expense accounts, kickbacks from vendors. Your wife doesn't know." A plan formed in my mind. "Can you prove the embezzlement?" I questioned. "With the right documentation, yes," he confirmed. "Get it," I ordered. 3 weeks after that first meeting with Sterling, I sat across from David Walter, managing partner at Walter Watts and Associates. David wasn't just a lawyer, he was a surgeon who operated on marriages, cutting them apart while protecting his clients' vital organs, their assets. "Based on what you've shown me," David said, adjusting his rimless glasses, "you have grounds for an at-fault divorce. Adultery, alienation of affection, arguably fraud given her stated intentions." "I don't want to file yet," I told him. His eyebrows rose slightly. "Most men in your position want to serve papers immediately. Most men in my position act on emotion," I explained. "I'm approaching this like a hostile takeover. You don't announce your intentions until you've already won." David smiled, the expression of a shark recognizing another predator. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. I slid a folder across his mahogany desk. "Phase 1. Asset protection. I want everything moved, restructured, or shielded, legally." He flipped through my financial statements. "Your joint accounts," he began, "will maintain normal balances and activity," I interrupted. "I'm not stupid. But my business accounts, my investment portfolio, the properties held by my LLC, those need to be restructured." "You're talking about moving significant assets," he pointed out. "That could be seen as hiding marital property." "Not hiding. Protecting," I corrected. "My business has international clients. It makes sense to establish offshore accounts for foreign transactions. The real estate holdings? I'm restructuring for tax purposes, completely legitimate, especially with the new regulations." David made notes on his legal pad. "And phase 2? He inquired. "Information warfare," I answered. "Julia's been consulting with Janet Morrison. I want to know their strategy before they do." "I can't spy on opposing counsel," he warned. "I'm not asking you to," I replied. "But Morrison's paralegal just applied for a position at your firm. Might be worth an interview." His smile widened. "You've done your homework." "I'm a financial consultant," I said. "Research is what I do." Over the next hour, we mapped out a strategy that would make Sun Tzu proud. Every move Julia might make, we had a counter. Every asset she thought she could claim, we had a legal shield. "What about the house?" David asked. "Technically owned by my LLC, not jointly," I explained. "She's listed as a resident, not an owner." "She'll argue that it's marital property regardless," he cautioned. "Let her argue," I said. "By the time she realizes what's happening, the LLC will have sold it to another shell company I control. She'll be fighting for something that no longer exists." That evening, I started implementing the plan. First, I opened new accounts at banks where Julia had no presence. Small transfers at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, amounts that wouldn't trigger attention but would accumulate quickly. Next, I contacted my business partners. "I'm restructuring for international expansion," I explained. Each believed they were the only one I was telling. Each agreed to redirect payments to the new offshore accounts I'd established. The house was trickier. I needed Julia to sign documents without realizing what she was signing. Fortunately, she'd grown lazy about reading what I put in front of her. "Honey, I need your signature on these tax documents," I said one evening, sliding papers between her wine glass and her phone. She barely glanced up from texting, probably Ryan. "Where do I sign?" she asked. "Just the flagged pages," I answered. Her pen moved across the documents that would transfer her residency rights to a month-to-month basis. Another set buried in the stack restructured our home equity line of credit, removing her as a co-signer. All done, she said, sliding them back. You're so good at handling all this boring financial stuff. That's why you married me, right? I asked. For my boring predictability? She laughed, not catching the edge in my voice. Among other reasons. Yeah, I thought. About 3 million other reasons. The truly satisfying part came when I handled our credit cards. As the primary account holder, I had full control. I didn't cancel them. That would be too obvious. Instead, I gradually reduced the limits. $50,000 became $40,000, then $30,000. Small enough decrements that the automated alerts wouldn't trigger. I also started documenting everything. Every client dinner, I noted in my calendar with screenshots of her location data showing her at Ryan's apartment. Every weekend conference, I saved hotel receipts from her credit card statements showing charges for 2 guests. Sterling continued. His surveillance, building an encyclopedic record of the affair. Videos of them entering hotels. Photos of intimate dinners. Audio recordings that would make Julia's lawyer weep. But the masterstroke was Ryan's gambling debt and embezzlement. Sterling had compiled irrefutable proof, altered expense reports, forged receipts, vendor kickback agreements. Ryan had stolen nearly $75,000 over 2 years, using it to feed his gambling addiction. He owed $200,000 to people who broke bones for lesser debts. 3 months into my preparation, everything was in place. 70% of our liquid assets had been legally moved beyond Julia's reach. The house was one signature away from being sold to my shell company. Our investment portfolio had been restructured into trusts that predated our marriage, backdated legally through a loophole David had found. Julia remained blissfully unaware, lost in her affair and her dreams of taking me to the cleaners. She'd even grown bolder, barely bothering to hide her contempt. You know, she said one night after her 3rd glass of wine, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd married someone more exciting. Like who? I asked. I don't know, she mused. Someone who takes risks, someone spontaneous, someone like Ryan, I thought. Well, you married me instead, I replied. Yeah, she sighed. I did. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathing. 13 years we'd shared this bed. 13 years of trust I'd given freely. In the darkness, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just cold, calculated determination. The Steinberg Holdings deal was set to close in 1 week. Julia was practically giddy with anticipation, already planning how she'd spend her half of the bonus. She had no idea the payment structure had been restructured, that the money would never touch an account she could access. Everything was ready. The evidence was compiled. The assets were protected. The trap was set. All that remained was to spring. D-Day was a Thursday. I chose it specifically because Julia would be at the hotel with Ryan, giving me time to execute without interference. At 9 a.m., I met with Robert Steinberg to finalize our merger, the deal Julia had been waiting for. Instead of the $2 million bonus she expected to hit our joint account, the payment went directly to my Cayman Islands Corporation. Unusual payment structure, Steinberg noted. Tax advantages, I explained. My accountant recommended it. By 10 a.m., the house sale was complete. Fast Cash Homes, a company I'd incorporated 3 months earlier, now owned our colonial. The beauty was that the sale wouldn't show up in public records for 30 days, long after Julia would need that information. At 11 a.m., I walked into Chase. Bank with a cashier's check for $400,000. The contents of our joint savings liquidated that morning. Closing the account, Mr. Carter? The manager asked. Investment opportunity, I replied. Time sensitive. By noon, every joint credit card had been canceled. Not frozen, canceled. Julia would find out the moment she tried to pay for her hotel room with Ryan. At 12:30 p.m., while Julia was presumably in the throes of passion at the Marriott, I sat in David Walter's office as he prepared the divorce papers. But these weren't ordinary papers. You're sure about this? David asked. Once we file, there's no going back. File them at exactly 2 p.m., I instructed. That gives me time to execute the rest. The rest was the part I'd planned most carefully. At 1 p.m., I sent an anonymous package to Pharmatech Industries' HR department. It contained Sterling's complete report on Julia and Ryan's affair, the hotel receipts, the photos, the audio recordings, everything. But more importantly, it contained proof of Ryan's embezzlement. At 1:30 p.m., another package arrived at Ryan's, bookie's office. This one contained Ryan's work address, his home address, his daily schedule, and a note. He's been stealing from his company. Might affect his ability to pay you back. At 1:45 p.m., I sat in my car outside the Marriott, waiting. At 2:03 p.m., Julia emerged from the hotel, phone pressed to her ear, face pale. The divorce papers had been filed and her attorney notified. I watched her try her credit cards at the valet. Stand. Declined, declined, declined. She called me immediately. Michael, something's wrong with the credit cards, she began. They're canceled, I stated. Silence. Then, what? She asked. Check your email, I told her. David Walter sent you something. I watched her fumble with her phone, saw the moment. She opened the divorce filing. Her face went from pale to white. Michael, we need to talk, she pleaded. We're past talking, I interrupted. You might want to call your attorney. Oh, and Julia, you should probably warn Ryan that HR wants to see both of you tomorrow morning. What did you do? She demanded. What did I do? I repeated. I protected myself from someone who's been f***ing another man while planning to rob me blind. The question is, what are you going to do now? She was crying now, mascara running. Where are you? She asked. Watching you, I answered. She spun around, scanning the street until she spotted my car. She ran toward me, but I pulled away before she could reach the door. 23 times. She called over the next hour. 23 times I didn't answer. Finally, a text. I'm at home. Please come talk. Home. The house she didn't know I'd sold. I arrived to find her on the porch, still in the designer dress she'd worn for Ryan. Her face was blotchy, eyes swollen. The moment she saw me, she launched into her performance. Michael, please, she begged. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. You were planning to divorce me and take everything, I stated. Her expression shifted, tears drying instantly. You don't know what you're talking about, she retorted. I pulled out my phone, played one of Sterling's recordings. Her voice filled the space between us. Michael's so predictable. When I finally pull the trigger, I'm taking half of everything. The mask dropped completely. So you spied on me? She accused. I investigated a threat to my assets, I corrected. Turns out I was right. Those assets are half mine, she claimed. Were half yours, I corrected. Check your bank account. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking. I watched her face as she discovered the joint accounts were empty. You can't do this, she protested. That's marital property. Which I moved to protect from someone planning to steal it, I explained. My lawyer says it's completely legal given your documented intent to defraud me. I'll fight you, she threatened. I'll take you for everything. With what money? I asked. Your credit cards are canceled. Your personal account has what, maybe $3,000. Janet Morrison requires a $50,000 retainer. She went pale again. The house, she started. Sold. 3 hours ago, I announced. That's impossible, she exclaimed. I didn't sign anything. Actually, you did, I replied. 3 months ago. You really should read what you sign. The reality of her situation was sinking in. No money, no credit, no house, no leverage. Ryan will help me, she said, but even she didn't sound convinced. Ryan's about to be unemployed and arrested for embezzlement, I informed her. He owes $200,000 to some very unpleasant people who just learned he might not be able to pay. I don't think he's in a position to help anyone. Her phone rang. Ryan's name on the screen. She answered on speaker, probably hoping I'd hear something useful. Julia, what the hell did you do? Ryan's voice was panicked. What do you mean? She asked. HR knows everything, he continued frantically. The hotels, the dinners, everything. They have photos, they have recordings, and they're saying something about missing money. Ryan, calm down. She tried to interrupt. I can't calm down, he shouted. I'm going to lose my job. We're both going to lose our jobs. Did you tell anyone about us? No, she began. This is your husband, isn't it? He accused. Your husband did this. Ryan, we can figure this out, she attempted. There is no we, Julia, he snapped. This is over. Don't contact me again. The line went dead. Julia stood there, phone in her hand, mouth open. In the span of 5 hours, she'd lost everything. Her marriage, her money, her house, her lover, and soon, her job. You destroyed me, she whispered. No, I said, turning back to my car. You destroyed yourself. I just didn't save you from the consequences. As I drove away, I felt the first stirrings of something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, but simple relief. The months of deception were over. The careful planning had paid off. Julia would face the consequences of her choices, and I would rebuild my life without her shadow hanging over it. The next 3 days were a symphony of destruction. Each movement perfectly timed. Friday morning, 8:47 a.m., Julia walked into Pharmatech Industries for what would be the last time. Sterling was there, sitting in his car in the visitor's lot, documenting everything. She went in confident, he reported via text. Came out in tears 40 minutes later with a banker's box. Human resources had been thorough. Gross misconduct, violation of company policy regarding workplace relationships, and bringing disrepute to the company. No severance, no references, immediate termination. Ryan hadn't even made it that far. Security had escorted him out Thursday evening after the embezzlement evidence surfaced. Criminal charges were pending. Saturday brought a new wave of humiliation. Julia's friends, the same ones who'd covered for her affair, suddenly went silent. Social media told the story. She'd been removed from their private groups, unfriended, unfollowed. The sisterhood that had enabled her betrayal abandoned her the moment she became a liability. Her best friend, Monica, actually called me. Michael, I just wanted to say I had no idea she was planning what she was planning, she explained. If I'd known about the money thing... You knew about the affair, though, I pointed out. Silence. Then, I thought it was just a fling. I didn't think she'd actually... She started. Destroy our marriage? Try to rob me? Ruin lives? I finished. She hung up without another word. Sunday was when Julia made her first real mistake. She showed up at my office, my private office that she'd only visited twice in our entire marriage. I was working, preparing for Monday's client meetings when she walked in using the spare key I'd forgotten she had. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes from Thursday, eyes bloodshot. We need to talk, she said. We have lawyers for that, I replied. I can't afford a lawyer, she admitted. That sounds like a personal problem, I responded. She sat uninvited in the client chair. Michael, I know I hurt you, she began. You didn't hurt me, I corrected. You revealed yourself. There's a difference. I made a mistake, she claimed. I set down my pen, gave her my full attention. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, I explained. You conducted an 8-month affair while planning to divorce me for maximum profit. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. I was confused, she tried to justify. You were calculated, I interrupted. I have 3 hours of audio where you discuss strategy with Ryan. Would you like me to play your greatest hits? The part where you call me boring? Or maybe where you laugh about taking the house? Her face crumpled. I didn't mean those things, she insisted. Yes, you did, I countered. And that's actually fine. You're entitled to your opinion. What you're not entitled to is my money, my house, or my sympathy. I have nothing, Michael, she pleaded. Nothing. You have what you earned, I told her, which, coincidentally, is nothing. My parents, she started. Know everything, I interrupted. I sent them Sterling's report yesterday. She went white. "You didn't," she whispered. "I did," I confirmed. "Your father called me last night. He was disappointed. Your mother didn't say anything. I think she was crying too hard." This broke her. The tears came hard and fast, her body shaking with sobs. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something. A ghost of the love I'd once had for this woman. Then I remembered the recordings, the mockery, the calculated cruelty of her betrayal. "There's something else," I said. "Ryan's in the hospital." She looked up, tears stopping instantly. "What?" she asked. "Apparently his creditors weren't happy about his sudden unemployment," I explained. "They found him Friday night. Broken ribs, fractured jaw, ruptured spleen. He'll live, but he won't be pretty anymore." "Did you?" she began to accuse. "I was here all night," I stated. "Security footage confirms it. I had nothing to do with it." Monday morning, the divorce papers were officially served. David had crafted them beautifully, no-fault filing that would move quickly given the circumstances. Julia would get exactly what she was entitled to under law, her personal belongings, her car, still making payments, and her retirement account, barely 5 figures. Everything else was either protected by prenuptial agreements she'd signed without reading or had been legitimately moved beyond reach. She tried one last gambit, showing up at the house Monday evening with her parents. I was ready for them. Her father, Robert, was a good man. Old school, worked his whole life as a plumber, built his business from nothing. Her mother, Diane, was a kindergarten teacher. Salt of the earth people who'd raised a daughter they know. "Longer recognized, Michael," Robert said. "We need to discuss this situation." "Of course. Come in," I replied. I led them to the dining room, the same table where Julia and I had shared countless meals. I'd already laid out the evidence, photos, bank records, transcripts, everything organized chronologically, painting a clear picture. Robert picked up a photo of Julia entering the hotel. His jaw tightened. Diane read a transcript of Julia mocking our marriage, tears rolling down her cheeks. "We didn't raise her to be this way," Diane whispered. "I know," I acknowledged. Robert looked at his daughter. "Is any of this fabricated?" he asked. Julia couldn't meet his eyes. "No," she admitted. "You were going to steal from him?" Robert questioned. "After cheating?" "It's not stealing," Julia protested. "I was entitled—" "To what?" Robert's voice rose. "To destroy a good man because you were bored? To throw away a marriage for some excitement?" "You don't understand," she started. "I understand perfectly," he interrupted. "You're not the woman we raised. The daughter we raised had integrity." He stood, helped Diane to her feet. "Michael, I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. This isn't your fault," I assured him. "She's our daughter," he replied. "That makes it our responsibility." He looked at Julia. "You can come home, but you'll earn your keep. You'll work in the office, answering phones, minimum wage. You want to rebuild your life, you'll do it honestly." "Dad," she began. "That's the offer," he stated firmly. "Take it or find somewhere else." They left her there in my dining room. Technically not my dining room anymore, but she didn't know that. The new owners would take possession in 2 weeks. Julia looked at me, defeated. "You win," she said. "No," I corrected. "I survived. There's a difference." She gathered her things, the small box of possessions I'd packed for her, and walked to the door. She paused, turned back. "Did you ever love me?" she asked. "Completely," I answered. "Which is why this betrayal required such a complete response." "I did love you, you know," she said. "In the beginning." "I know," I replied. "That almost makes it worse." She left then, and I knew it would be the last time she'd stand in this house. The last time we'd speak without lawyers between us. Tuesday brought more fallout. Julia's attorney, Janet Morrison, filed a motion to contest the asset transfers. David Walter called me, amused. "She's claiming fraud and illegal asset hiding," he reported. "And?" I asked. "The judge reviewed our documentation," he explained. "Every transfer was legal, every restructuring above board. Motion denied. Morrison actually withdrew from the case afterward. Apparently, your ex-wife's retainer check bounced. Wednesday, Sterling called with an update on Ryan. He's been formally charged with embezzlement, he informed me. Pharmatech is pressing full charges. He's looking at 3 to 5 years minimum. Also, his creditors visited him again in the hospital. He's agreed to a payment plan that will take most of his income for the next decade. And Julia? I inquired. Living with her parents, he answered. Started working at her father's company. Yesterday. She's also been blacklisted from every major pharmaceutical company in the tri-state area. That HR report went viral in the industry. Thursday, exactly 1 week after D-Day, the divorce was finalized. New York's expedited process for uncontested divorces with clear evidence of adultery had worked in my favor. Julia hadn't contested anything. She couldn't afford to. The financial summary was stark. Julia's settlement. Her 2018 Honda Civic, still $12,000 owed. Her 401k, $47,000, her personal belongings. My assets, the business, $2.8 million valuation. The house, sold to my shell company for $750,000. Offshore accounts, $1.2 million. Investment portfolio, $600,000. Total protected, $535 million total lost to Julia, $47,000. Friday afternoon, I met with Steinberg to discuss the next phase of our business partnership. I heard about your divorce, he said carefully. I hope it wasn't too costly. I protected what mattered, I replied. Good, he responded, because Goldman Sachs is interested in acquiring our merged companies. The initial offer is $40 million. My share would be approximately $12 million after taxes. Money Julia would have been entitled to half of had she waited just 2 more weeks before her affair was discovered. That evening, I stood in my empty house. Empty because I'd already moved my important possessions to a storage unit. The new owners, a young couple from Connecticut, would take possession Monday. They had no idea they were buying from Fast Cash Homes, which was actually me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from Julia. I know you won't respond, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Therapy. AA, working on myself. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I deleted it without responding. Another text. This one from Sterling. Thought you should know. Ryan Matthews attempted suicide in the hospital. He survived, but barely. He's on psychiatric hold. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, nothing. They'd both authored their own destructions. I'd simply declined to be a casualty in their story. The coffee shop on Madison Avenue was new, one of those places that charges $8 for a latte and calls it artisanal. I was reading the Journal, enjoying a rare Saturday morning off when I saw him, Ryan Matthews, or what was left of him. His face had healed wrong. The broken jaw left his profile asymmetrical, his once perfect smile now crooked. He walked with a permanent limp. He saw me before I could look away, then surprisingly walked over. Mind if I sit? He asked. I gestured. To the empty chair. Up close, the damage was worse. Scar tissue covered his knuckles. His left eye drooped slightly. I wanted to apologize, he said. No, you want absolution, I corrected. There's a difference. Maybe, he admitted. But I am sorry. It's worth exactly nothing, I replied. Like Julia's divorce settlement, he flinched. How is she? He asked. Living with her parents, I answered. Working reception at her father's plumbing company. Last I heard, she was dating some guy from her AA group. We sat in silence while his coffee arrived. I lost everything, he said. You stole from your company and loved another man's wife, I stated. Consequences follow actions. She really was going to take you for everything, he revealed. Had spreadsheets calculating down to the penny what she could get. I know, I replied. For what it's worth, you won, he said. Completely. No, I just didn't lose, I corrected. He limped away, a broken man. 2 hours later, I met David Walter for lunch. Goldman Sachs deal closed yesterday, he reported. $12 million after taxes as projected. Good, I responded. You know Julia hired 3 different lawyers after Morrison? He mentioned. Each quit when they saw the evidence. That afternoon, I closed on a new penthouse downtown. The realtor, an attractive brunette named Sarah, handed me the keys with a warm smile. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter," she said. "It's a beautiful space for a new beginning." "That's the plan," I replied. "The divorce must have been difficult," she observed. "The marriage was difficult," I corrected. "The divorce was just paperwork." She laughed. "Hey, if you need help settling in or want recommendations for the neighborhood," she offered. "Maybe coffee next week?" I suggested. "I'd like that," she answered. A week later, walking through Central Park, I saw them, Julia and Ryan, sitting on opposite ends of the same bench near the reservoir. Not together, just 2 people whose mutual destruction had left them with nothing but proximity to their shared ruin. Julia wore cheap clothes from Target, her designer wardrobe long sold. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Ryan wore a janitor's uniform, probably the only job he could get with a felony conviction pending. They didn't speak to each other, didn't even acknowledge each other's presence, just sat there, feeding pigeons with stale bread. I stood there, for a moment, letting them see me in my tailored suit, heading to another $1 million meeting. Then I turned and walked away without acknowledging either of them. That night, over dinner with Sarah, she asked about my marriage. "What went wrong?" she inquired. She confused stability for weakness, I explained. Thought predictability meant I was an easy mark. "Do you miss her?" she asked. "I miss who I thought she was," I answered. But that person never existed. Later, alone in my penthouse, I stood at the window watching the city sleep. My phone buzzed with an email from David Walter. "Goldman Sachs deal finalized. Wire transfer complete." I thought about Julia, probably lying in her childhood bedroom, dreaming of the millions she'd thought were hers for the taking. About Ryan, probably self-medicating his pain on a janitor's salary, his perfect face now a broken reminder of his choices. I poured myself an 18-year Macallan, a luxury Julia had always called wasteful, and toasted the empty room. 2. Boring predictability, I said to no one, and to the idiots who mistake it for weakness. The city sparkled below, indifferent and eternal. Somewhere out there, Julia was learning to live with consequences. Ryan was learning to live with pain, and I was learning to live with victory. My phone rang, an unknown number. Voicemail, Julia's voice, broken and slurred. "Michael, I know you hate me, but I wanted you to know. Ryan meant nothing. You were everything. I just got greedy, and now I've got nothing, and you've got everything. I loved you. I really did." Once, I deleted the message, blocked the number. 6 months post-divorce, I had my victory. Julia had her consequences. Ryan had his scars. Justice, as it turns out, tastes like expensive scotch and sounds like silence where chaos used to live. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't bitter. It was just complete. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.